Hi everybody, Dan Illman here, taking a look at race number 8 at Parx on Pennsylvania Derby Saturday. This, the Grade 3 $200,000 Greenwood Cup. We're going 1.5 miles on the main track. That's 3 turns at Parx. Let's take a look at this field. Magic Michael's back in. He won the Greenwood Cup in 2021, but the horse they're all going to have to beat hails from the Todd Pletcher barn, and that's the number 8, Fearless, who's your 6-5 morning line favorite and a deserved heavy favorite. He's won 3 of his last 4 races, including the prestigious Grade 2 Brooklyn, and he's turning back in distance off of a 14-furlong stakes win at Saratoga last time out. He also has wonderful tactical speed that allows him to work out good trips in most of his races, as we see from the Timeform US pace projector. I do agree with Timeform US about the first 2 pace setters. I think Double the Heart, stretching out off a gate-to-wire victory in a middle-distance race, albeit against much weaker competition. I think this one's going to make the front, but Ridin with Biden might have the most quality of the true speed horses. He earned a triple-digit Beyer speed figure in gate-to-wire fashion, going 9 furlongs, 2 starts back, and to me, he's not a speed-crazy horse. He can sit off a horse like Double the Heart, and I think he could take over at will when he wants. I won't be surprised at all if he's in front when the real racing begins on the 3rd turn. Let's start things off with a graded stakes winner in his own right, the number 1 Brooklyn Strong. He won the Remsen as a 2-year-old going 1 1/8 miles, and that race put him on the fast track to the Kentucky Derby, a situation that just might have been too much too soon because Brooklyn Strong is now yet to run back to the Remsen. He is taking incremental steps forward, however. Here's his most recent race against fellow New York breds going 1 mile at Saratoga. He takes on Millionaire Bankit, and he's going to end up finishing 3rd behind Bankit. Bankit would return from this race to run 2nd against New York breds in the off-turf West Point with an 84 Beyer speed figure. Brooklyn Strong is slowly moving forward. He is yet to run to the Remsen. That is now an outlier on his form, but he is stretching out with the tactical speed to work out a good trip, and you can't get much better than Joel Rosario, who takes the mount. The number 2 is Western River. 1.5 miles, no problems for Western River. Not only is he by Tapit, who's basically been the king of sires in a race like the Belmont Stakes, but Western River's already won at 1.5 miles. He handled that distance with aplomb 3 starts back at Churchill Downs when scoring a first-level allowance as the heavy favorite. He then ran in the Curlin Stakes, a restricted event at Saratoga, won by the talented Chad Brown trained runner Artorias. The 3rd-place finisher, classic-placed Creative Minister, would return from that race to run 3rd again in the graded Smarty Jones at Parx with an 82 Beyer speed figure. They tried turf again with this horse last time out. A, he didn't like the soft ground. B, his trainer said that he lost his shoes in that race. Nothing went right. Draw a line through that effort. Distance is his friend, and he is another horse that can adapt to any kind of pace scenario, and he gets a top rider in Flavien Prat. The number 3 is Magic Michael, and he won this race last year. When I talked to Jamie Ness, his trainer, earlier in the week, he said that ever since they put Magic Michael away for the winter, they've circled the 2022 edition of the Greenwood Cup. Now, he has not won this year, and I'm a little concerned that he's not in the same form he was in 2022. Perhaps pace compromised by Wired by Tax in the Battery Park and Wired by Ridin with Biden in the deputed testimony. This last race to me worries me somewhat. It's an optional claiming race at Delaware, and the short comment says slow start, and when you click on the short comment in your free Formulator past performances when you bet this race with DRF bets, I didn't think he broke badly at all. He was in between horses at the back. He swung widest into the stretch. He was late to change leads, and he was grinding it out for 2nd, but behind a horse that was a huge long shot. It was a somewhat disappointing loss for Magic Michael at a relatively short price, but he's getting back to a distance that he knows well over a track that he adores. Talk about horses for courses. He is 9 for 10 at Parx. To me, the 4-1 on the morning line might be a little bit light because I do have some concerns about his current form, but stretching back out, getting back to his favorite racetrack could certainly work for Magic Michael. Boss Making Boss Moves is a 3-year-old New York bred coming off a victory in the Albany over a wet track. Let's watch that race right now for trainer Rick Schosberg. John Velasquez is going to pick up the mount. Rad Ortiz rode this horse in the Albany. Again, click on that short comment to watch the entire race because the start tells the story. Boss Making Boss Moves leapt right up at the air. He spotted this field 2 lengths. It didn't bother him in the least. He ran right by these horses in the stretch to win easily. Now, this race came over a wet track. Both of his wins have come over wet tracks. It will be interesting to see if he is as effective against older horses on a fast dirt track going an unfamiliar distance. But he does have some upside potential, and he seems to be trending the right way. Ridin with Biden as the number 5, triple-digit buyer winner of the Deputed Testimony, 2 starts back on the lead. They ran him in the Grade 3 Island last time out at Monmouth, and the incremental pace just seemed to heat up. The internal splits were very fast in that race. Fast second quarter, fast third quarter. It was not only fast, it was contested. And Ridin with Biden was one of the horses contesting that pace, and he just got tired at the very end. I talked to his trainer, Butch Reed, earlier this week. He likes the idea of this horse stretching out in distance, where he can perhaps deal with slower fractions up front or getting away from other horses. And if you look at the pace projector, that's probably a situation that's going to occur where he can sit second and try to get the jump on everybody else. He has the fast races. He's a horse that Reed told me was a very nervous horse before they gelded him. He was a stall walker. He was very anxious. Now he's matured, and you can see it in his recent running lines. Double the Heart is up next. Let's watch his last start. This was a starter allowance race, a much weaker event than the graded Greenwood Cup. He was speedy this day. They basically took no prisoners at 17-1. They just opened up a big lead. You see him getting tired at the end. He is able to hold on to win by a half length. His speed should put him up front. I'm very concerned about his class issues and the ability for him to go a mile and a half. He's out of a Gilded Time mare. Gilded Time is a noted speed influence. While I'm worried about his ability to get the distance, I have less worries about the 7, the Reds, coming off this victory in a second-level allowance at Saratoga, going a mile and an eighth. And the Reds got close to a moderate pace in between horses. You see him turning into the stretch, and it never looks like he's going to win by a lot, but he just grinds it out in the manner of a true stayer. And when I talked to Safi Joseph earlier this week, he said that's one of the reasons why he's stretching the Reds out to a mile and a half. He believes this horse doesn't have a strong burst of speed, but that he is steady and grinds, and that a mile and a half will be in his wheelhouse. And going back to some of his races when he was trained by John Kimmel going a mile and an eighth, that's what you saw, that grinding ability. He's also pace adaptable, and he's somewhat interesting with Arad Ortiz taking the mount. He's run some fast races for Safi. Fearless is up next, simply the horse to beat for Todd Pletcher. He's won 8 of 17, and it's just been a wonderful evolution. This is a horse that began his career with Todd, and he showed some early speed in his races. Then he lost his speed completely. Then he went to the sidelines, came back as a rock-solid middle-distance horse, and now he's found himself as a true marathoner. Let's watch his last start, the Birdstone, going 14 furlongs. And I talked to Todd earlier this week. He said Fearless won this race on class alone, that he hated this racetrack. Saratoga track, it was deep for most of this meet. This track was also wet, and Fearless just didn't seem to like it, but he does grind through inside of the pace setter Lone Rock, himself one of the better longer distance dirt horses in the country, and Fearless is able to win. He has all the fast races on his page, the tactical speed, and he is a deserving favorite and the horse to beat. Forewarned completes this field, and to me Forewarned is the kind of horse that he can pop at a price. He runs to the level of his competition. Now, he didn't run very well in this race last year, but since then he's won a couple of 9 furlong stakes races in New York. He's been very capable at a mile and a quarter throughout his career, which makes me think that under the right circumstances he can get a mile and a half. Last time out, he was beaten by a red-hot Ohio bred at Thistledown, a horse that's now won 4 of his last 5 starts. Forewarned is a horse that needs a little bit of pace to set up his kick, but he has pulled off some upsets in the past. We take a look at my top selections for the Greenwood Cup, and that's where I want to go. I want to go with a price in this race, even though I respect Fearless. And Forewarned has run some fast races in the past. He's won a couple of times at a mile and a quarter, and he's run well at Parx. I think breaking from the outside post, he's just going to let the speeds go, tuck in, hope for a fast pace, and come with a sweeping run. He's my top selection. I want to use the Reds. I want to use Fearless. I think those 2 horses are going to be very dangerous at this distance. Obviously Fearless, but the Reds with that grinding style could work very well at a mile and a half. 9-7-8-3 for me in the Greenwood Cup at Parx on Pennsylvania Derby Saturday. Best of luck.